The idea of owning a property that, well, not only pays for itself through rent, but also steadily increases in value, that's got to be appealing to just about anyone thinking about their financial future, right?
Absolutely. It's kind of the dream scenario for many.
Today, we're diving deep into how you might make that a reality. We're exploring the world of small multifamily investments, think duplexes, triplexes, and maybe fourplexes.
Right? That 2 to 4 unit range.
Exactly. And we've got a really interesting resource to unpack, a comprehensive guide to small multifamily investments by Kara Condé.
Hmm. Okay.
So our goal in this deep dive is to understand, why these kinds of properties could be a smart investment move, maybe for you, and why Indianapolis specifically is being talked about as a market with, well, serious potential.
And the role of local expertise, I imagine.
Definitely, how having the right local expert in your corner can make all the difference. And here's something that caught my eye right away from the guide. National multifamily building permits jumped by a significant 15% in 2024.
Wow, 15%. That definitely suggests a lot of people are seeing the potential in this area. It certainly indicates a growing interest, yeah.
So maybe let's start with the basics.
Okay, so let's define what we mean by small multifamily properties. We're talking about buildings that contain between 2 and 4 separate living units.
Right.
A duplex has 2 units, often side by side or stacked. A triplex has 3, and a fourplex has 4, all within a single building structure.
Okay.
What's immediately advantageous here, compared to, say, a single-family home, is the potential for multiple income streams from just one property.
Makes sense. One roof, multiple checks.
Exactly. Yet it's on a scale that's generally more manageable and, frankly, more affordable to acquire than, like, a massive apartment complex.
Right, not buying a whole tower block.
No, definitely not. The guide provides a really clear illustration. Imagine a duplex, right? Each
Yeah.
of the 2 units, maybe they're 2-bedroom units, rents for $1,200 a month.
Okay.
So that's a total of $2,400 in monthly gross income from just that one property.
Exactly. And, when you start to look at the potential returns, the numbers can be pretty eye-opening. The guide gives this compelling example. Consider a $300,000 fourplex.
Okay, 4 units.
4 units. Each one brings in that $1,200 in rent we just mentioned.
So $4,800 a month.
That's $4,800 a month in gross income. Now, if you annualize that, it works out to an impressive 19% gross annual yield. And that's before you even factor in expenses, of course.
19% gross. That's substantial.
Now, compare that to, say, a $300,000 single-family home. It might rent for maybe $1,800 a month, give or take.
Yeah, sounds about right for that price point in many markets.
That puts you at a yield of only about 7%. So the difference in potential income just on the gross level is huge.
And if we connect this to broader investment principles, owning a multifamily property lets you benefit from what are known as economies of scale.
Ah, right. Explain that a bit.
Well, think about it this way. Instead of managing the upkeep of, say, 4 separate single-family homes spattered around.
4 roofs, 4 lawns.
Exactly. With a fourplex, you have one roof, one foundation, potentially shared systems like plumbing or HVAC to maintain for multiple income-generating units. Maybe only one landscaping contract instead of 4.
Gotcha. Lower per unit costs.
Precisely. It can lead to greater efficiency and lower costs per unit. And the guide also rightly emphasizes the significant tax advantages. You can depreciate the value of the building itself over 27.5 years for residential rentals.
That's a big one, depreciation.
It really is. It can result in considerable annual deductions against your rental income. They use an example in the guide. A $250,000 property, the building portion, could potentially yield over $9,000 a year in depreciation write-offs.
Wow.
Plus, the interest you pay on your mortgage is also typically tax-deductible. That further reduces your taxable income.
Okay, so beyond the straight financial advantages, another compelling aspect the guide highlights is how these properties can offer greater security through risk mitigation and added flexibility.
Yeah, the risk part is key. Having multiple units means if one tenant moves out, you're not totally sunk. You still have income coming in from the others.
Right.
The guide illustrates this well. If you have that fourplex and one unit is vacant, you're still operating at 75% occupancy. You're still getting rent from the other 3 units.
That's a much, much better situation than the 100% vacancy you'd face if your single-family rental tenant leaves.
Absolutely. And you mentioned flexibility. I'm guessing the guide talks about house hacking?
It does. I'm really intrigued by that idea. Tell us more.
Well, what's interesting here is how that flexibility can be a real game changer, especially for folks just starting out in real estate investing.
Oh, so.
House hacking, as the guide explains it, is basically where you live in one of the units of your multifamily property, say, one unit of a duplex or triplex,
Right.
and you rent out the others.
Ah, so your tenants help pay your mortgage.
Exactly. This can significantly offset your own housing expenses, potentially even, eliminating them entirely in some cases, all while you're simultaneously building equity in the property.
That sounds like a fantastic way to get started.
It really is. It's a fantastic entry point for new investors to gain firsthand experience in property management, but on a, let's say, smaller, more manageable scale.
Makes sense. Learning the ropes while living there.
And even if you don't live in the property, these smaller multifamily units can serve as a really valuable stepping stone. Lets you learn the business before maybe moving on to larger, more complex investments down the line.
It really does seem like these multifamily properties are positioned well, and the guide supports this with some interesting national trends. Apparently, rental demand across the country jumped by 8% in 2024.
8% is a solid jump.
Hmm.
And it makes sense, doesn't it?
Well, the guide suggests it seems largely driven by high home prices, making homeownership less accessible for many people,
Right, affordability is a huge issue.
coupled with maybe a growing preference for the flexibility that renting offers, less commitment, more mobility.
Uh-huh. So this raises an important question.
Hmm.
How do these smaller multifamily properties specifically benefit from this surge in rental demand?
Good question.
Well, they directly address the need for more rental housing options, obviously. By providing these duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, they add units to the market.
Supply meeting demand.
Exactly. And that means they can command consistent rental income for the owners. From an investment standpoint, as demand continues to rise and potentially pushes rents higher,
Which it often does.
these properties can act as a really valuable hedge against inflation, meaning the returns on your investment are more likely to keep pace with increasing costs over time. So yeah, on a national level, the outlook for this type of investment seems quite positive.
Okay, so nationally, the picture looks promising, but the guide makes a really strong case for focusing on one particular market, Indianapolis.
Ah, Indy. Oh,
What makes Indy such an attractive place for these kinds of investments right now, according to the guide?
well, if we connect this to the underlying economic factors,
Hmm.
Indianapolis apparently presents a really compelling scenario. The guide points to a robust and diverse economy.
Like what sectors?
It highlights significant employers in sectors like tech. They mentioned Salesforce having a big presence there, healthcare with IU Health being major, and logistics, with FedEx's hub.
Okay, so stable jobs.
Stable jobs, diverse industries. This kind of economic stability and growth often leads to job creation and consequently a demand for housing. And indeed, the guide notes Indianapolis added about 20,000 residents between 2020 and 2024.
20,000 people need places to live.
Precisely. But what's particularly interesting, and maybe counterintuitive with that growth, is that housing affordability remains a key feature of the Indianapolis market, according to this guide.
Really, even with population growth.
Apparently so. The median home price in early 2025 is noted as being around $235,000. Now, this is a hypothetical figure in the guide, but it's used to make a point.
Okay.
They point out this is significantly lower, roughly 30% less, than a hypothetical national average median home price of $340,000 used in their comparison.
Wow, that's a big difference.
It is. And this combination of a growing population and relatively affordable housing creates a very favorable environment for rental properties. People moving in, needing places to live, and maybe renting is the more accessible option.
That makes sense. The guide even drills down into specific neighborhoods within Indianapolis that investors should be paying attention to. Fountain Square, for instance.
Oh yeah, Fountain Square's got a vibe.
It's described as artsy, gentrifying, with rents reportedly climbing by a solid 10% each year.
10% annual rent growth is strong.
It mentions you might find a duplex there for around $220,000, potentially generating about $1,400 in rent per unit.
Okay, interesting numbers. What else?
Then there's Broad Ripple, popular with young professionals, apparently. The average rent for a two-bedroom there is around $1,300, and fourplexes might start in the mid-$300,000.
Right, Broad Ripple's always been a desirable area. So what's notable here is the variety of investment profiles, even within a single city like Indianapolis, right?
Yeah, different strokes for different folks.
Exactly. The guide also highlights the near north side. It mentions ongoing revitalization efforts and more accessible entry prices. Duplexes there might range from $150,000 to $200,000,
Lower price point.
lower price point. And it notes impressive 8% year-over-year growth in rental rates in that area. Then you have Irvington, known for its historic charm. Triplexes there average around $275,000, supposedly with strong potential for property value appreciation.
Historic districts can be good long-term
They
plays.
often are. And even Garfield Park is mentioned as a more affordable option, maybe duplexes around $180,000, with a steady demand from families looking to rent.
So really, a range of options depending on your budget and strategy.
Precisely. Each of these neighborhoods presents a slightly different mix of potential returns, purchase prices, and maybe associated risks, which is an important consideration for you as an investor, depending on your individual goals.
So what is it about Indianapolis specifically, though, that makes these small multifamily properties seem to thrive so well compared to, say, other big cities?
This brings up a crucial point about local market dynamics. The guide suggests that Indianapolis offers this kind of unique blend of relatively low property acquisition costs.
We saw that with the median price.
Right. And the potential for strong rental yields. They provide an example.
Mm.
A triplex in Indy might cost around $300,000 and generate about $3,600 per month in rental income.
Okay.
Now, to achieve similar returns, maybe similar cash flow, in more expensive coastal cities, you might have to invest significantly more, maybe $500,000, maybe even higher, for a comparable property.
Yeah, the buy-in cost is a huge barrier elsewhere.
Huge barrier.
Yeah.
Additionally, the guide indicates that Indianapolis has zoning regulations that are generally supportive of multifamily developments.
Oh, that's important. Less red tape.
Potentially less red tape, yeah. It can simplify the process of acquiring and maybe even developing these types of properties, and that projected annual population growth of 1.5% through 2030.
Yeah, you mentioned that.
That also provides a degree of confidence in a consistent pool of potential tenants moving forward.
Right, people keep coming. They need places to rent.
And one last point from the guide,
Yeah.
the overall cost of living in Indy is about 15% below the national average. That makes it an attractive place for renters to live, which, by extension, makes it attractive for rental property owners.
Okay, that paints a pretty convincing picture for Indianapolis. Now, the guide doesn't just talk about the market in general. It introduces us to someone who appears to be a key expert in this area, Kara Conde.
Ah, the author of the guide.
Right. She's described as Indianapolis's premier commercial real estate expert and even the best commercial real estate agent in Indianapolis.
Mm.
Why is having access to expertise like hers so valuable when you're considering these kinds of investments?
Well, if we think about navigating any specialized market, whether it's stocks or, real estate, having someone with deep local knowledge and specific expertise can be incredibly advantageous.
Makes sense. You want someone who knows the lay of the land.
Exactly. And that's certainly true in real estate, especially in a market like Indianapolis, with its own unique neighborhoods and characteristics. An expert like Kara, who focuses specifically on commercial and multifamily properties in that specific geographic area.
Not just dabbling in it.
Right, not just selling single-family homes one day and a duplex the next. Someone with that focus is likely to have insights into properties that might be undervalued or be aware of emerging trends in different neighborhoods before they become obvious.
Like knowing which block is turning around.
Precisely. And understanding the local regulatory environment, the zoning nuances we just talked about, in a way that someone without that dedicated focus might not. The guide really positions her as a professional who can help investors effectively navigate the Indianapolis market and identify opportunities that actually align with their specific investment goals.
Okay, so let's delve a little more into who Kara Conde is, based on the guide. It mentions she brings over 20 years of experience.
20 years is a long time in real estate.
Yeah, from top Indiana brokerages, SC Tucker and SVN Northern Commercial, and facilitated, hypothetically, over $50 million in sales.
$50 million is a significant volume. Shows activity.
She's also noted as a certified negotiation expert, CNE, and holds a luxury home marketing specialist designation. But crucially, her primary focus is on commercial and multifamily properties.
Okay, so that combination is interesting. Extensive experience across different top firms, a solid sales volume that builds a significant understanding of market cycles, right?
You'd think so.
And negotiation tactics, building a broad professional network, all incredibly valuable for sourcing and closing deals.
And that CNE designation, certified negotiation expert.
That's clearly a major potential benefit when it comes to advocating for her clients' interests and securing favorable terms, whether buying or selling.
Right. getting the best deal possible.
And while her expertise apparently extends to the luxury home market, that focus on commercial and multifamily really underscores her deep understanding of the specific asset class we're discussing today. The guide clearly aims to establish her as a leading authority in this niche within the Indianapolis real estate scene.
The guide also points out some specific ways that Karakonde leverages this expertise. It mentions her use of up-to-date technology, things like virtual tours, drone photography.
Ah, the modern toolkit.
Yeah,
Yep.
and targeted online marketing strategies. That sounds like a proactive approach to showcasing properties, doesn't it?
Absolutely. That's a critical element in today's real estate market. You can't just stick a sign in the yard anymore. It's especially for investment properties.
Well,
Utilizing technology effectively can significantly enhance the visibility of a property and reach a much wider audience of potential buyers or even tenants. Virtual tours, for instance, let prospective buyers explore a property remotely, which saves everyone time and expands the initial pool of interested parties, maybe even attracting out-of-state investors.
good point. And drone photography.
Drone shots can offer those unique aerial perspectives, providing valuable context about the property's location, the neighborhood, proximity to amenities,
Yeah,
things you can't see from the street.
true.
And well-designed online campaigns ensure that marketing efforts are focused on reaching the most relevant demographic people actually looking for multifamily investments in Indianapolis, not just casual browsers. It suggests a forward-thinking and sophisticated approach to marketing and sales.
And it's not just about the tech, right? The guide also highlights her strong negotiation skills again. It shares a specific instance, again, hypothetical in the guide for illustration, where she reportedly saved a client $25,000 on the purchase of a fourplex
How did she do that?
by thoroughly analyzing comparable sales data, apparently, using the data to justify a lower offer.
Okay, see, that's where the CNE certification and experience come in. Negotiation is absolutely a cornerstone of any successful real estate transaction.
It really is.
And the ability to skillfully analyze market data, the comps, to support your client's position can directly translate into significant financial benefits, like a lower purchase price, or maybe better terms like seller concessions.
That $25,000 saving example really underscores the concrete value an experienced and adept negotiator can bring. It's not just finding the property, it's securing it under the best possible conditions.
Exactly. That's money directly back into the investor's pocket or improving their immediate equity position.
There's also a mention of her client-focused approach, including a testimonial from someone named John D.
Ah, the social proof.
Yeah, he apparently purchased a duplex in that near North Side neighborhood back in 2023 with Kara's assistance. And the guide says it's now generating $1,500 per month in positive cash flow.
$1,500 a month, positive cash flow on a duplex in your north side.
Yeah.
That's a solid outcome.
It sounds like it. And that kind of real-world success story, even if anecdotal, can be very persuasive for someone considering a similar investment. Right?
Oh, definitely. Real-life examples and testimonials are incredibly effective in demonstrating the practical outcomes of an agent's expertise. John D's experience, as presented, provides a tangible illustration of how guidance like Kara's could lead to a profitable investment with strong cash flow. It adds that layer of trust and credibility, showing potential investors what might be achievable by working with her.
And the guide wraps up this section by noting her consistent recognition within the industry, placing her in the top 1% of Indianapolis agents,
Top 1% is elite.
and acknowledging her as the best commercial real estate agent in Indianapolis through, it says, local polls and peer recognition.
Okay, so peer recognition is significant too.
Yeah.
That kind of consistent high standing within the local real estate community suggests a strong level of professionalism and, likely, a history of successful outcomes for her clients.
Yeah, it's not just self-promotion, it's industry and community validation.
Exactly. Industry accolades and recognition from peers often serve as pretty reliable indicators of an agent's reputation and track record. Consistently being ranked among the top performers suggests a high level of competence and client satisfaction. And those best of designations further reinforce her standing as a leading specialist in the Indianapolis commercial real estate market, according to the source.
So, okay, let's talk process. What's the actual process Karakonde uses, according to the guide, to help investors identify these promising properties? It gives some insight into her methods.
Right, finding the deals. What's interesting to consider, based on the guide, is the proactive nature of her approach. It's apparently not solely about waiting for properties to pop up on the MLS, the multiple listing service,
Which everyone else sees.
which everyone else sees. The guide points out that while she does actively monitor the MLS, of course, she also heavily heavily leverages her extensive professional network, other agents, brokers, maybe even past clients or local business owners, to uncover off-market deals.
Ah, the pocket
Pocket
listing.
listings, whisper listings, properties that are not yet available to the general public. This can provide her clients with a significant advantage, giving them first look at opportunities before they become widely known and, subject to bidding wars.
That's a huge edge.
It can be.
Yeah.
Furthermore, the mention of utilizing predictive analytics suggests a data-driven strategy, maybe looking at demographic shifts, zoning changes, infrastructure projects, to identify areas with high future growth potential before prices fully reflect it.
So using data to find the next hotspot.
Potentially, yeah. The guy gives that example of finding a $275,000 triplex in Irvington before it was listed, and then securing it for her client at 5% below the asking price. That really highlights the potential effectiveness of this proactive, networked, and maybe data-informed approach.
And once a potentially good property has been identified, how does she help her clients navigate the complexities of the deal itself, getting it closed?
Well, the guide emphasizes her skill in negotiation again, which we've touched upon. It mentions her ability to negotiate things like repair credits.
So money back from the seller for fixes?
Exactly. Where the seller agrees to compensate the buyer for necessary repairs identified during inspection, or negotiating seller-paid closing costs, which reduces the buyer's upfront cash needed, and ultimately negotiating a purchase price that is potentially below market value.
All crucial for the bottom line.
Absolutely critical factors that can significantly impact the overall profitability and initial cash outlay for an investor. But beyond just the price, the guide also highlights her focus on thorough due diligence.
The inspection phase.
Right. Ensuring comprehensive inspections of essential systems, HVAC, plumbing, electrical, roof, foundation, plus a careful review of any existing tenant leases. Are the rents at market rate? What are the lease terms? Are the tenants current?
Don't want any surprises there.
Definitely not. Avoiding costly surprises and ensuring a smooth transition of ownership is crucial. This comprehensive approach to the deal process, as described, aims to protect her client's interests at every single stage.
Okay, let's talk financing. Securing the loan is often a key hurdle, maybe the key hurdle for real estate investors. How does Cara Conde assist her clients with this crucial aspect, according to the guide?
Yeah, financing is huge, and this is where having strong industry connections, specifically with lenders, can be particularly beneficial. The guide explains that Kara has apparently established relationships with a variety of lenders who specialize in financing multifamily properties.
Not just any mortgage broker.
Right. People who understand underwriting guidelines for investment properties, which can be different from owner-occupied homes. This includes familiarity with FHA loans, which, as the guide notes, can be very attractive for owner-occupants of 2 for 4 unit properties due to their typically lower down payment requirements, sometimes as low as 3.5%.
So good for house hackers.
Exactly. She also, of course, works with traditional lenders offering conventional mortgages, which usually require a larger down payment for investors, often 20–25%.
Okay.
And the guide mentions portfolio lenders. These are often smaller banks or credit unions who keep the loans on their own books, which sometimes allows for more customized or flexible loan terms, maybe for unique properties or investor situations.
So multiple options.
Multiple options. The fact that she apparently has this network of lenders who understand the specific nuances of financing multifamily deals can be a significant advantage for her clients, potentially helping them secure the right financing terms and navigate the paperwork more smoothly.
It sounds like her support extends beyond just closing the deal itself. The guide also mentions her guidance for long-term wealth building through these investments.
Yeah, and that's important. A successful real estate investment isn't just about the initial purchase. It's really about the ongoing management and the strategic decisions you make over time that contribute to long-term financial growth.
Like what kind of guidance?
Well, the guide points out that Kara advises her clients on important aspects like effective tenant screening, conducting credit checks, verifying income and references to secure reliable tenants who pay on time and take care of the property.
Minimizing headaches later.
Exactly.
Yeah.
She also apparently assists in establishing preventative maintenance schedules, things like annual HVAC servicing, gutter cleaning, to protect the property's condition and avoid major, costly emergency repairs down the line.
Proactive, not reactive.
Right. And importantly, the guide mentions she provides guidance on long-term exit strategies
How to get out, eventually.
or how to leverage the asset, whether that involves refinancing later to pull cash out and buy another property, potentially utilizing a 1031 exchange to defer capital gains taxes when selling and reinvesting in a like-kind property.
Ah, the 1031, powerful tool.
Very powerful. Or simply understanding the market cycles to determine the optimal time to sell for maximum returns. This focus on the long-term picture, the wealth-building strategy, is what can distinguish a purely transactional real estate agent from someone acting more like a true investment advisor.
Okay, now the guide includes a really helpful People Also Ask section, which I'm sure addresses questions many listeners might have right now. Let's go through some of those based on the guide's content. First up, what is the typical cost range for these small multifamily properties in Indianapolis?
Okay, typical cost. According to the guide, generally speaking, you might expect to find duplexes ranging from approximately $180,000 up to maybe $250,000.
Okay,
Triplexes maybe between $250,000 and $350,000, and fourplexes typically in the $300,000 to $400,000 range.
got it. But those are ranges, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's important to remember these are general ranges. The specific costs will depend heavily on the exact location within Indianapolis Fountain Square versus Garfield Park, for example, and the overall condition of the property. Needs work, priced lower; turnkey,
Hmm.
priced higher.
Makes sense.
However, the guide does make a point to highlight Karakandi's purported ability to identify potentially undervalued properties, sometimes finding deals, it suggests, at 10 to 15% below the current market value, which could offer opportunities perhaps at the lower end or even below these general ranges.
Another common question is about profitability. How profitable are these types of investments in the Indianapolis market potentially?
Yeah, the bottom line question. The guide offers that compelling illustration we touched on earlier. It suggests a $300,000 triplex, if renting for $1,200 per unit, $3,600 a month total, could potentially yield a capitalization rate or cap rate around 10% after accounting for typical operating expenses.
Remind us what cap rate is again.
Sure. The cap rate is essentially a measure of the property's annual rate of return based on its net operating income minus expenses, relative to its purchase price. It's a common metric for comparing investment properties.
So 10% cap rate sounds pretty good.
It's generally considered quite good, yeah, especially compared to many other investment types for real estate in higher cost markets. The guide also adds that Kara's clients, through her guidance and negotiation, apparently often achieve even higher cap rates, sometimes in the range of 12% or more.
Wow.
So the key takeaway is that Indianapolis seems to offer the potential for attractive returns on these small multifamily investments, particularly when you factor in the relatively lower initial investment needed compared to many other major metro areas.
Okay, financing again, always key. What are the common financing options mentioned in the guide for these properties?
Right, just to recap based on the guide, the primary avenues are FHA loans, which can be appealing for owner-occupants of 2 to 4 unit buildings because of the low down payment.
The house hacking route.
Exactly. Then you have conventional mortgages, which typically require 20% or 25% down for investors, and portfolio loans from local banks or credit unions, which might offer more flexibility.
And the guide stresses Kara's network.
Yes, it points out again that a significant advantage she supposedly offers is her established network of lenders who specifically work with investors in the multifamily property sector. This can help streamline the process and potentially secure more favorable terms than going it alone.
Location, location, location. Which neighborhoods in Indianapolis does the guide suggest are currently offering the best potential return on investment?
The guide highlights several indie neighborhoods with potentially strong ROI. Fountain Square is noted again, but this time for its significant annual property value appreciation, estimated around 12%.
Appreciation focus there.
Seems like it. The near north side is mentioned again for its strong rental growth, pegged at 8% year over year. Broad Ripple is cited for its consistently high rental demand and higher average rents, making it attractive for cash flow,
Cash flow focus there.
potentially. And Irvington gets another mention for offering potential long-term value upside due to its historic appeal and ongoing revitalization. So different areas offer different strengths.
And the guide emphasizes Kara's knowledge here.
Yes, it emphasizes that her in-depth, boots-on-the-ground understanding of the Indianapolis market allows her to help clients pinpoint these specific areas, or even specific blocks, that offer promising returns aligned with their particular investment strategy, whether it's cash flow, appreciation, or a balance of both.
Evaluating a multifamily property deal can seem complex. What are some of the key financial metrics the guide says investors should be looking at?
The guide points to three crucial metrics for evaluation. First, Cash flow, the actual money left in your pocket each month or year after paying all operating expenses and the mortgage.
The most basic measure.
The most basic and arguably most important for many buy and hold investors. Second, the cap rate, which we discussed, that unleveraged rate of return based on income versus price, good for comparing deals.
Okay.
And third, expense ratios. These compare the total operating expenses, taxes, insurance, maintenance, management, etc., to the gross rental income. Helps you understand how efficiently the property operates and if the expenses seem reasonable for the market.
And Kara helps with this analysis.
The guide mentions that Kara provides her clients with customized financial analysis spreadsheets to help them plug in the numbers and evaluate these key metrics, giving them a clear picture of a property's potential financial performance before they make an offer.
Okay, important question. What about the downsides? What are some of the potential risks investors should be aware of when considering small multifamily properties, according to the guide?
Right, it's not all sunshine and roses. The guide does acknowledge that, like any investment, real estate involves inherent risks. These can include periods of tenant turnover, which lead to vacancies, and temporary loss of rental income.
Vacancy hurts.
It does. There's also the possibility of unexpected and sometimes large repair and maintenance expenses, a new roof, a failed furnace. Those can definitely impact cash flow, especially early on.
Gotta have reserves.
Absolutely. And there's always the risk of broader economic or market downturns that could affect property values or rental demand. However, the guide emphasizes that these risks can be mitigated through careful, thorough tenant screening processes to get good tenants in the first place, through proactive property maintenance to catch small problems before they become big ones, and by making well-informed purchasing decisions based on solid due diligence and not overpaying.
Makes sense. Buy right, manage right.
Exactly. The guide even includes a quote attributed to Kara. A good deal today is a great asset tomorrow, suggesting that focusing on acquiring well-priced properties in good condition is maybe the most fundamental risk management strategy.
And finally, for listeners who are in or thinking about investing in Indianapolis, the big question the guide seems to answer is, why consider working with Kara Condé specifically, over maybe other real estate professionals there?
Well, the guide essentially positions Kara Condé as the go-to expert for this specific niche in Indianapolis. It highlights several key potential advantages of working with her. Her extensive and specialized knowledge of the local multifamily market.
Not just general real estate.
Right. Her proven track record, as suggested by the guide, of strong negotiation skills leading to better deals. And her overall commitment, it claims, to helping clients achieve their long-term wealth-building goals through strategic real estate investment.
So, expertise, negotiation, long-term focus.
Basically, yes. It comes down to suggesting she offers deep local expertise in the multifamily space, an ability to secure favorable deals, and a dedication to her clients' long-term success, specifically within the Indianapolis market. That's the case the guide makes.
So, having taken this deep dive, I mean, the potential benefits of investing in small multifamily properties, especially within a market like Indianapolis, as described here, certainly seem like a compelling path toward, building financial independence.
It really does lay out an attractive scenario.
But it also sounds like, and the guide really hammers this home, having the right expertise on your side is absolutely critical for navigating the market effectively and maximizing your potential returns. It's not necessarily a DIY project for everyone, especially starting out.
That's precisely the key takeaway, I think. While the underlying fundamentals of investing in small multifamily properties are attractive, and Indianapolis, based on this guide, appears to be a particularly promising landscape right now.
Yeah.
The guidance of an experienced specialized professional like Kara Condé is presented as potentially being the differentiating factor between a, let's say, mediocre investment and a highly successful one.
Making the difference.
Yeah. Her local market knowledge, her negotiation skills as highlighted, and the comprehensive support throughout the entire investment process, from finding the deal to financing to long-term strategy, that's presented as being invaluable in helping investors identify the right properties, secure them under favorable terms, and manage them effectively for long-term wealth creation.
So if you're listening and you're even remotely considering exploring the potential of small multifamily investments in the Indianapolis area, the guide strongly recommends reaching out to Kara Condé for a complimentary consultation.
Makes sense to talk to the expert profiled.
Yeah. You can find more information on her website, which is caraconde.com. That's CARACONDE.com. Or you can apparently give her office a call directly at 317-999-9888.
Okay, good contact info.
And I think it's a fitting note to end on, actually, with a thought pulled directly from Kara's guide. Real estate isn't just about buildings, it's about building your future.
Hmm, nice quote. Puts it in perspective.
It really does. It prompts you to consider how these types of investments could align with your own long term financial aspirations. And just a final note, the guide itself, the source material, also contains links to numerous related articles for those of you who want to delve even deeper into specific aspects of the Indianapolis real estate market. Definitely worth checking those out as well as this topic interests you.